Hi, I'm Chester Connell. I've got a question for you. Can you name me 3 of the top coffee-producing countries in the world, including one in the Caribbean? You've got 5 seconds. Time's up. If you said Indonesia, Mexico, Ethiopia, Jamaica, all of those would be correct. Did you think of St. Vincent and the Grenadines? That's right. Our country could be in that list. We're chatting with Duke DeArmond here at his coffee-producing establishment, and the name of your coffee is.
We actually don't have a name. It's just we're just starting. It's been only 4 months, and things are taking off really well. So.
Okay, well let's begin. Let's begin at the beginning, Duke. Tell us where this all began.
Well, my wife started here in Canouan working, because it's this. St. Vincent is one of the places where she can come without having a visa. She comes from Belarus, and it's similar to Cuba, where all the nations in the world don't want any Cubans, and they don't want Belarusian people either. But St. Vincent has this, it's open. It's so that she was allowed to come here and work, and then I came and seeing that it was very much like Hawaii, and I was thinking all the crops that will grow in Hawaii will also grow here, and one thing Hawaii is famous for is macadamia nuts. And I originally was thinking grow macadamia nuts, and one problem with that is there's a lot of insects here, or even anywhere that attack them. But in the meantime, seeing that it would take so long to have a crop, I thought of an intermediate crop, something in mid-range that will start to produce. And coffee takes around 2 years, so I started growing coffee. And then during that time, I was realizing that the type that I brought is not attacked by any insects, and they don't have the diseases here for this type. And the kind that was actually growing here before is more susceptible to insects and sicknesses and the wind, because they have larger leaves and they get blow over. And these ones, it's very, very well adapted here to St. Vincent, so it's probably the perfect place for it.
Now, you are actually a dental technician by profession. Do you consider yourself a farmer now?
Well, I like farming better than being a dental technician, actually.
What made you decide to be a farmer?
Well, it's coming from countries like I come from, the United States or Germany. It's you can only grow a certain amount of months per year, and then when you come to St. Vincent and you've got a lot of the weather is you could grow all year round, and a lot of people that are from foreign countries like myself, you come here and it's just inconceivable. You can just continue to grow all year round, and I that appealed to me, and that's why I started. I'm into I like fruits and things too, avocados and such.
And you've done some research as well on the history of coffee growing, evidently.
Yes, well, luckily, coffee is one of the crops that there is an abundance of information on in the internet. If you look, say, for instance, for ginger, you won't find really anything, but coffee, there's all sorts of manuals, how to grow it, how to process it, all the different methods. And it's a crop for, say, younger farmers or people from the very beginning, just coming in and never grown anything in their life. And you could find out all the information on your own without even having any help from anybody that has experience at it. So, and you might want to supplement it with contacting other farmers, like say in Hawaii that has Kona coffee, and filling in some of the gaps where you may not find the information on the internet. So
now, I remember coming into contact with coffee growing as a boy on the estates on the windward side of St. Vincent, and it was a very small crop relatively to bananas and even to cocoa, which was also grown. Have you encountered other coffee farmers in St. Vincent today, or are you the only one as far as you know?
I haven't found any. I've seen some trees, and then they're huge trees. I know somebody on the windward side. I don't know. He grows bananas, but he had a huge tree. They lost it in the hurricane, but it's probably 100 years old. And a lot of the Vincentians call the coffee Creole coffee, and I guess that was brought by the French, which means, and the French brought coffee to the Americas. It was first come to Martinique, and I believe it was 1623, and right after that, the first crop, they transplanted it to many Caribbean islands, and St. Vincent was about the first one, and that's around 1625. And it's like I say, I haven't, and I think it's the crop has lost any significance here because a lot of people were trying to grow it on a commercial scale, but with a small island and a rough terrain, you can't grow it that way. And if you look at a model like, say, Hawaii, it's very similar to St. Vincent, and there's small farmers making nice profits and being able to support themselves with growing coffee. And you now, with the more and more machines coming out, you have smaller machines and what they call it estate coffee, estate or gourmet coffee, and one farmer can do the entire process from growing to processing, even to serving it in a cup or having their own little coffee shop. It's a very good thing for Vincentians, especially suited for families. If you have like a mother, a father, and some daughters, because one farmer alone can grow 300 trees on his own without any help. The only time you'll need extra help is around processing time and picking.
So you're saying it's not very labor intensive?
Well, it's not any more labor intensive than, say, farming in this country, ginger, or a lot of the other crops, because you can't use the machines anyway. When people say coffee is labor intensive, that is because you're talking about other terrains where it's flat and you can have these machines that go through. Even in Brazil, they have machines picking coffee. But in most places, you don't. It's done by hand. And if you look at a place such as Hawaii, where the labor costs are much higher, and if they can make it profitable, then we can make it profitable.
So you're suggesting coffee as an agricultural product for St. Vincent and the Grenadines, or for St. Vincent?
Oh, definitely. It's just, I think the problem in the past was that they were trying to grow it on a commercial level, and a lot of the training was missing. That, they wouldn't trim the trees. You can grow it commercially, but you have to process it on the estate model, which is the farmer is the one that grows it and is responsible for the entire quality of it. What happens in Brazil is or even Trinidad, they're growing the coffee, and the farmer doesn't care what they do. It's just processed, and without any care whatsoever, and they just sell it. And the people that buy it, they don't care either. And it's just done in massive bulks, and the quality is, terrible.
So you're saying there's a niche market for us here, and you are blazing a trail. Tell us what you are doing, how much coffee you grow, and what do you do with it?
No, I don't grow that much. Like compared to some of these places that have, 30 acres or thousands and thousands of trees, I think this past year I only had around 130 trees. And I'm starting to increase that. What I just now planted, that won't bear fruit for another 2 years. So the next year, and the hurricane, it might have thrown off the schedule a little bit, because a lot of them were blooming too early, and I'm not sure how much crop I'm going to have next year.
Now, what do you do with your coffee? You sell it? Tell us about that, and you produce it yourself.
Yes, well, we don't sell it to a large... We haven't really tried to sell it to a lot of places because we don't have the quantity. And if I start to spread out, our customer base much greater, it's it's not going to, it'll be gone immediately. So we just sell it in a few places. So stretch it out over a longer period of time for months, and,
So do you advise other farmers to follow your footsteps and to grow coffee on a small basis, at least to begin with? Or is this something that if you have the money that you should, buy 100 acres and do coffee at that scale?
Well, then it would be labor intensive, 100 acres. I couldn't do that myself. I'm having enough trouble. I think when I mentioned to you before that I have a 1/4 of an acre practically, but it's actually a little more. But a lot of those are not yet producing, so I would say maybe I have a ½ acre. And of course, the most labor-intensive part is just like any crop, pulling weeds. So.
What is it that you intend, Duke? What is your goal with your coffee growing and your coffee production?
Well, that's interesting. I was hoping to have support myself with it. Well, coffee and a lot of agricultural products, but it was also just to. I knew that it would be a great product here because it's, like I say, it's St. Vincent is located right in the center of the coffee belt in the world, where Ethiopia is where coffee comes from, and Panama has the highest priced coffee. Recently, I have heard that one estate, it's called Hacienda La Esmeralda. They just sold. It was auctioned at $300 a pound for their coffee. And what we are growing here, well, what I'm growing, since they don't have the insects and the diseases, it's actually about the highest quality Arabica. And most places can't grow that, but we don't have these diseases here. So, I mean, it would be a shame for people not to be growing this when you have such an environment for it.
How much a pound does it go for here?
Well, what am I selling it for? I'm not even sure. We have 250 grams, and the supermarkets are having it for, I think it's like, we just had the price lowered. Although prices are going up, we lowered ours to, it's now $44 or so. Oh, 250 grams. That's a little over half a pound. And the same type, from the same exact trees that I got my seed from, they're selling it for $40 a pound presently.
Where do you get your seeds from, or is that a secret?
No, it's from Hawaii. It's actually Kona coffee, but Kona coffee is Typica, and Typica, well, originally it came from St. Vincent or Martinique, and then it went to the mainland, South America. And then from Guatemala, it went to Hawaii. And now I brought it from Hawaii back to the islands here. So it's just made like its little circuit, and it's come back home, so to speak.
What are some of the challenges that you're facing, Duke, in your coffee production, coffee planting, and your entire coffee production?
Well, that's the good thing. There's not that many challenges. If I were to grow oranges or something, you'd have to worry about the thieves. And I have other crops where the thieves are, they're the ones that are taking it, or insects. You have insects and thieves, and I was lucky to find out that in the hurricane I lost from the wind like 2 trees out of, I don't know how many you'd say I have, a few hundred, and I have macadamia and lost 10% of my trees. And coffee is such a thing where it has to be processed. So the thieves, if you were to worry about thieves coming and taking it, it would take them all day just to make a pot of coffee. To pick the beans and then to process that by hand if they don't have machines. So it's an ideal crop if you're living in an area where there's a lot of thieves, and because they're not going to have that much interest in working so much. Maybe they'll steal it once or twice, and after that it's just way too much work.
What sort of help would you like? Everybody needs help in some way, shape, or form. Do you want more help from Vincentians, from the government, from the business sector, from individuals, advisors, consultants? Where would you like assistance as a person doing something new and innovative in St. Vincent?
Well, I guess anybody can use help in just about anything. If more people were to grow it, it would be more of a, so to speak, a lobby or something to put some pressure and possibly, say, get some concessions granted. Because if you look at all countries that grow coffee, that's all concessions or subsidies. There are Kona farmers that in Hawaii that pay $1